Most people think cybersecurity is a technology problem. They think if they use stronger passwords, enable two-factor authentication, install antivirus software, and keep their systems updated, they've solved the issue. But breaches keep happening. Phishing keeps working. Smart people keep getting compromised. Companies with massive security budgets still suffer catastrophic failures. At some point, you have to ask a harder question. What if the problem isn't the tools? What if the problem is identity itself?
Breach Bites TV.
When you log into an account, what are you actually proving? You're not proving who you are in any meaningful human sense. You're proving that you possess something, a password, a code, a device, a fingerprint. Modern security is built around proxies for identity. It doesn't verify you. It verifies signals that are supposed to represent you. And attackers have become extremely good at stealing, copying, or manipulating those signals. Think about how much of the internet runs on trust cues. A logo, a familiar interface, a blue check mark, an email that looks formatted correctly, a notification that appears at the right moment. None of those things are identity. They are representations of identity. And the human brain is wired to accept representations as reality when they feel familiar enough. That's the layer attackers target, not encryption, not firewalls. Familiarity. This is why phishing is still one of the most effective attack methods in the world. It doesn't break systems. It impersonates them. It doesn't defeat security controls. It convinces you that the security control is legitimate. When someone enters credentials into a fake login page, the system didn't fail. Identity perception failed. The victim believed the page represented the real service. The attack succeeded before any code was even processed. Even two-factor authentication, which we discussed previously, is built on identity signals. A push notification appears and says, "Are you trying to log in?" If the attacker times it correctly, the victim thinks, "Oh, that must be me," and taps approve. The system interprets that tap as verified identity. But what was actually verified? Not the person, just a response. The tool functioned exactly as designed. The identity assumption was wrong. At a business level, this becomes even more dangerous. Organizations assign permissions based on roles and credentials. If someone logs in with valid credentials, the system assumes they are authorized. But credentials can be phished. Session tokens can be stolen. Devices can be compromised. The infrastructure doesn't know the difference between a legitimate employee and an attacker using legitimate access. It only knows the signals match. The uncomfortable truth is that digital identity is fragile. In the physical world, identity includes body language, voice, tone, history, and context. Online, identity is reduced to data points, strings of characters, device fingerprints, behavioral patterns. These are measurable, but they are also reproducible. And when something can be reproduced, it can be exploited. Attackers understand this better than most defenders. They don't need to defeat advanced cryptography. They just need to get you to volunteer the signal. A password typed willingly. A code entered without hesitation. File downloaded because it looked expected. Social engineering works because identity online is a performance. Attackers are good actors. There's also a psychological component we rarely talk about: confidence. Smart people often feel immune to manipulation because they understand how attacks work. But knowledge does not eliminate reflex. The brain processes familiarity faster than logic. If something looks right, feels urgent, and matches an expected pattern, you respond before you fully analyze it. That's not stupidity. That's cognitive efficiency. And attackers design their campaigns around it. Security awareness training tries to solve this by teaching people what to look for. Hover over links, verify senders, double-check URLs. And while that helps, it doesn't fix the core issue. Because the core issue isn't ignorance. It's trust automation. We automate trust constantly to function efficiently. If we questioned every notification, every login page, and every email at maximum scrutiny, productivity would collapse. So we rely on mental shortcuts. Attackers rely on those same shortcuts. Another problem is scale. Digital identity systems are designed for convenience across billions of users. That means they prioritize usability. Password resets must be simple. Account recovery must be accessible. Authentication must be quick. Every friction point removed for user experience is also a potential opportunity for exploitation. Security and convenience are always negotiating with each other. And identity is where that negotiation is most fragile. Consider SIM swapping. An attacker convinces a mobile carrier to transfer your phone number to a new SIM card. Suddenly, they receive your SMS codes. The authentication system believes it is communicating with you because it is sending codes to your number. But your number was never your identity. It was just a routing mechanism. Once that signal is redirected, the system cannot distinguish the attacker from you. Or think about session hijacking. Once you log in successfully, your browser receives a session token that proves you are authenticated. If that token is stolen through malware or a malicious extension, the attacker doesn't need your password or your 2FA code. They inherit your authenticated identity state. The system again sees valid signals. Everything appears legitimate. The compromise is invisible to traditional defenses. Even biometrics, often marketed as the future of authentication, rely on representation. A fingerprint scan does not understand you. It compares a pattern to a stored template. Facial recognition analyzes data points. These are advanced and useful technologies, but they are still proxies. If biometric data is ever replicated or leaked, you cannot change your fingerprint the way you change a password. Identity becomes even more permanent, and therefore more valuable. So what does this mean for the average person? It means security isn't about stacking tools and assuming you're safe. It's about understanding that your digital identity is constantly being projected through signals. And those signals can be intercepted, replayed, or manipulated. So security becomes less about perfect prevention and more about layered skepticism. Layered skepticism doesn't mean paranoia. It means context awareness. Did I initiate this login? Was I expecting this reset email? Does this request align with my current actions? The goal isn't to question everything endlessly. It's to pause when something introduces urgency or surprise. Attackers thrive on urgency because urgency overrides identity doubt. At an organizational level, this shift requires moving beyond perimeter security and toward continuous verification. Zero trust architecture exists for this reason, not because employees are malicious, but because identity signals cannot be assumed trustworthy forever. Every request must be evaluated in context. Location, device, health, behavior patterns. Even then, nothing is perfect. But it reduces blind trust in static credentials. What makes identity problems especially dangerous is invisibility. When a password is weak, you can see it. When software is outdated, you can update it. But when identity trust is misplaced, everything appears normal until it's too late. The login worked. The approval was tapped. The system granted access. Only later does someone realize the signals were manipulated. There's also a cultural issue. We treat identity verification as a box to check. Enabled 2FA. Done. Use a password manager. Done. These are good steps. But they create a psychological finish line. Security feels complete. In reality, these are foundations, not guarantees. When people believe the foundation is the entire structure, attackers only need to find one behavioral crack. The future of cybersecurity will increasingly revolve around identity integrity rather than just credential strength. Passkeys, hardware tokens, behavioral analytics. These are all attempts to strengthen identity verification, and they help. But even as technology improves, human perception remains part of the equation. As long as identity signals can be influenced through social engineering, attackers will adapt. This is why the question isn't, what tool should I add next? It's where am I placing trust automatically? Because automatic trust is the real vulnerability, not intelligence, not awareness. Trust. The irony is that the internet only functions because of trust. We trust browsers to connect securely. We trust services to store data responsibly. We trust notifications to be authentic. Without trust, digital life would grind to a halt. But that same necessary trust creates opportunity. Security isn't about eliminating trust. It's about distributing it carefully and verifying it continuously. If you zoom out, every major breach story follows a similar pattern. An attacker gained access using valid credentials. Or they tricked someone into approving a request. Or they bypassed authentication through impersonation. Rarely does a headline read, "Encryption mathematically defeated." Instead, it's almost always identity misrepresentation at some stage in the chain. And this reframes the narrative. You don't have a security problem in the sense that you're missing one more app or setting. You have an identity problem in the sense that your digital presence is represented by fragile signals. The more aware you are of those signals, the more resilient you become. So the next time you receive a login alert, a password reset, or a verification request, don't just react automatically. Ask a simple question. What is this proving, and who initiated it? That small pause disrupts the automation attackers rely on. It inserts friction where manipulation depends on speed. Cybersecurity is often portrayed as a battle between hackers and software. But it's more accurate to describe it as a battle over identity perception. Who does the system believe? Who does the user believe? And how easy is it to influence that belief? The tools matter. Updates matter. Strong authentication matters. But understanding identity as the core battlefield changes how you approach all of it. Instead of chasing the next feature, you start examining the assumptions underneath. And that shift from tool-focused security to identity-focused awareness is what separates reactive defense from durable resilience. If you found this breakdown useful, consider subscribing. This channel isn't about fear or hype. It's about understanding why systems fail and how psychology shapes cybersecurity more than we admit. We've already explored why password rules still fail, why smart people get hacked, and why two-factor authentication isn't enough. And we're going to keep building on these layers because real security isn't a checklist. It's an evolving mindset. I'll see you in the next one.